The on-air bulb did not merely glow. It beat like a restless heart, casting crimson pulses down the corridor that linked the dressing rooms to Stage C. Stagehands hurried beneath it with the quiet panic of people who know history sometimes happens on random Tuesdays. Floor tiles snatched the light, returned it in jagged shards across the ceiling. Every reflection felt like a metronome of responsibility, counting off the seconds before someone would have to speak the unspeakable. Backstage, Tucker Carlson twirled a sharpened pencil between his fingers the way a drummer flips a stick between rim shots. He had already shattered 2 HB leads on his legal pad, columns of last-minute cues, arrows, underlines, angry exclamation points that looked like startled skyscrapers. His producer, Emily, tried to hand him a third pencil. He waved her off. "I won't need it," he said. "Tonight, the guest writes the story for us." Across the green room, Elon Musk examined a rack of studio earpieces laid out as neatly as surgical instruments. He picked one up, turned it over as if it were a piece of alien hardware and not a molded plastic shell, then set it carefully back in line. The gesture, delicate as a jeweler's, made the interns whisper that he might well handle a nuclear detonator with similar calm. He caught them staring, smiled a sliver, and resumed pacing. His shoes, soft charcoal suede, made no sound on the industrial carpet, but everyone felt each footfall like a subwoofer thump. A roaming cameraman with a shoulder rig drifted close, catching B-roll. Musk framed by backlit smoke from a fog machine test. Carlson leaning against a brick column, arms crossed, pupils darting left and right like he was reading invisible teleprompter lines floating in air. The cameraman whispered into his headset, "I think they're actually nervous." The director replied, "Good. Nerves mean honesty." Opening volley. On air. Jingle. Crowd roar. Carlson's face filled the country screens. "Good evening, and welcome to a special edition of the Tucker Carlson Forum. Tonight, for the next, well, as long as it takes, we speak with the most consequential industrialist since Henry Ford. If you like your car silent and software updated, if you like your rockets landing on their tails like 1950s pulp covers, if you like your internet served from orbit while bureaucrats still draft broadband maps, you know the name. Elon Musk, glad you could make it." The camera cut to Musk. He did not nod so much as tilt an axis. It gave the impression of an alloy pivot, smooth and frictionless. "Thanks for having me, Tucker." They shook hands across the desk. Oak aged to the color of gunstock, a deliberate aesthetic choice. The audience applauded. The applause sign flickered off, and a hush settled so abrupt one could hear the ambient whir of the LED wall behind them. Carlson wasted no primer rounds. "Let's begin where the Constitution begins. Borders." January 20th, 2021, President Biden issues a flurry of EOs dismantling prior enforcement. Remain in Mexico? Gone. Wall construction? Halted. Title 42 later expires under a cloud of contradictory memos. Result? In fiscal 2023, Customs and Border Protection logged 2.5 million encounters, officially. Not counting gotaways. Record fentanyl seizures, record migrant deaths. Humanitarian? Hardly. Your take. Musk folded his arms, elbows planted like outriggers. "I immigrated legally. Took 10 years. Forms, background checks, biometrics, interviews. That's a process. When you scrap the process, you don't create freedom. You create entropy. Entropy is the enemy of civilization." Carlson leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Entropy, tell me more." "Picture a data center," Musk replied. "Clean corridors, color-coded cabling, redundant cooling. Pull the maintenance staff, leave the doors open, let humidity rise. In 6 months, your servers are rust sculptures. That's the border now, an unmanaged data center. The people suffering most are frontline towns, Eagle Pass, Yuma, Del Rio, whose budgets were designed for cattle, not caravans." A murmur of "damn" right rippled through row 3. Musk wasn't done. Then factor in opportunity cost. Border Patrol pulled from ports to process asylum claims. Less inspection on legitimate cargo. Counterfeit chips, precursor chemicals, enriched uranium. You think cartels won't test that seam? We subsidize our own vulnerability. Carlson nodded, so sharply his tie swung like a pendulum. All in the name of compassion, of course. Compassion without constraints is sabotage disguised as virtue. Musk answered, and someone backstage whispered, "Put that on a t-shirt." Afghanistan, the vanishing point. Without transition graphics, Carlson hated them. They pivoted. August 2021, Carlson intoned. Kabul Airport. C-17 taking off with Afghans clinging to wheel wells. 13 U.S. service members murdered at Abbey Gate. Billions in armored vehicles and night vision gear left behind. The White House calls it extraordinary success. Was it extraordinary? Musk inhaled, exhaled like a boiler vent. Extraordinary in the statistical sense, far outside the normal distribution of screw-ups. You ever scrub a rocket launch, Tucker? Can't say I have. When we scrub, we stand down, we reassess, we own the scrub in public. Imagine if I said, explosion on pad? Tremendous success, folks. Stock would crater, board would fire me, FAA would bar me for life. Yet Washington sells catastrophe as competence. That inversion corrodes trust. Carlson uncapped a fountain pen he had sworn he would not need and scribbled inversion corrodes trust like a field note from war reporting. Strategically, Musk continued, we surrendered Bagram, a hardened airbase at the NATO standard, to the Taliban before evacuating civilians. That's like handing over your launch tower before fueling the rocket. You lose your high ground and your exit vector. He flicked two fingers as though discarding the illogic physically. Meanwhile, China moves in, eyes on rare earth deposits. They'll harvest lithium we could have co-developed with a functioning Afghan state. So we lost lives, gear, credibility, and future battery supply. Quadruple negative. The LED wall flashed archival footage. Columns of maps in Taliban colors. A Shanghai mining delegation touring Ghazni. The crowd hissed. Carlson added, but hey, no mean tweets. A bark of laughter broke from Musk. Unrehearsed, almost boyish. No mean tweets, but you might tweet in Mandarin if this continues. Inflation and the cost of magical thinking. Carlson clicked a remote. A sky blue graph filled the screen. CPI curved upward like a skateboard ramp. Let's talk money. $6 trillion in stimulus between March 2021 and March 2022. ARP, infrastructure, inflation reduction that increased inflation. They said it would help Main Street. Musk rotated his glass of water, watching surface tension climb the rim. If you pour water into a glass faster than gravity can settle it, you spill. Same with dollars in circulation. Velocity matters. Money printing, while supply remains constrained, equals too many claims on too few goods. Inflation is the rationing mechanism. Yet the administration blamed corporate greed. Carlson interjected. Musk smiled thinly. Greed didn't suddenly spike at 12:01 p.m. on January 20th, 2021. Human nature is a constant. Policy is the variable. You throttle domestic drilling. Truckers paid double for diesel. Freight rates climb. Bread costs $3 more. And the White House tweets a gif of Scrooge McGrocer. It's gaslighting in 4K. Carlson laughed. You could buy the television cheaper, though. Thank you, China. Until shipping lane insurance premiums skyrocket because the U.S. Navy deprioritized freedom of navigation drills. Musk countered. Then your discount flat screen arrives 6 weeks late and $150 higher. He leaned in, voice softening. Inflation is reverse Robin Hood. It steals the widow's grocery budget to inflate the 401k of someone who owns index funds. Silicon Valley can hedge with options. Single moms can't. Energy, the denominator of civilization. Carlson, there's rich irony in an EV titan blasting anti-fossil absolutism. Walk me through that. Musk, energy is a hierarchy. Baseload first, nuclear combined cycle gas, then variable renewables, then storage. You can't make a cake by banning flour because sugar is trendy. Administration policy prioritized frosting and hashtags over flour. He flicked a laser pointer at a mock-up of a power flow diagram spontaneously rendered on the wall. When they canceled Keystone XL, They didn't cancel global demand for heavy crude. They rerouted it through rail, higher carbon intensity, higher spill risk, and ironically more profit for OPEC. Carlson's eyebrow arched into the mesosphere. So the Green Revolution outsourced its own emissions. Correct, Musk said, like Nike outsourcing shoes. Only this time we outsource guilt. The planet's atmosphere, unfortunately, lacks customs checkpoints. CO2 in Riyadh is CO2 in Reno within 2 years. A chuckle rose. Climate jokes seldom land in conservative venues, but interface humor plus engineering scaffolding played well. Expand, Carlson urged, twirling a hand. Musk obliged. They vilified nuclear as if Chernobyl occurred weekly. Germany followed that script, shut its nukes, burned more coal, hit record power prices, and begged LNG from Putin. Dependency begets compromise. You can't preach climate justice at home while funding petro-authoritarianism abroad. Carlson jotted dependency begets compromise across previous underlines, so thick the sheet tore. COVID overshoot, the bureaucratic black hole. A dark ambient chord rolled from the subwoofers as the LED wall displayed playgrounds wrapped in police tape, a toddler masked on a swing. Carlson spoke quietly. 2 weeks to slow the spread turns into 2 years of slow-motion coma. Business closures, church closures, reopen then reclose whiplash. The administration claimed to follow the science. You had your own run-ins with local authorities. Musk cocked his head. Alameda County threatened to arrest my line managers because we reopened to build ventilators. We literally produced breathing machines while the state threatened to cut off our oxygen. Figure that paradox. The crowd rumbled approval. Musk continued. Data from Iceland and Sweden showed by summer 2020 that schools could operate with minimal risk. Instead, unions negotiated remote work extensions. Kids lost IQ points. Teen suicide spiked. We traded arithmetic for theatrics. Carlson. And we censored dissenting epidemiologists. Exactly, Musk said. Science is a set of falsifiable hypotheses, not a bureaucrat's Twitter bio. When Stanford professors were shadow banned for discussing herd immunity thresholds, that was epistemicide, murder of knowledge. He paused, scanning the room as if filing away every silent nod. Suppression doesn't eliminate error. It eliminates correction. Speech, censorship, and the state that mistook itself for a platform. Carlson, you own a certain bird app. Washington threatens Section 230 revisions, antitrust probes, even new digital safety boards. Describe the pressure. Musk clasped his hands, church steeple style. Pressure is a vector. When government officials email a platform requesting removals, that's not advice. That's state action in disguise. If they walked into the New York Times newsroom and yanked op-eds, it'd be obvious First Amendment violation. With algorithms, it's invisible, but no less real. Carlson leaned sideways on one elbow. The administration said they were merely combating disinformation. Disinformation, Musk replied, is Greek for words we dislike. They suppressed the Wuhan lab leak hypothesis for a year, labeled the Hunter laptop Russian fiction, flagged lockdown skepticism as violence. Scores now reversed. Who refunds the reputational damage? He rubbed 2 fingers together. Free speech is not a decorative constitutional pendant. It's the error correction layer of democracy. Strip it, and the system overheats like a server rack with clogged filters. Student debt, fiscal illusions, and generational sleight of hand. Carlson flipped to a new card. Loan forgiveness. $500 billion in obligations waved away with a signature, later stalled by the court. Even the attempt warped incentives. Musk, forgiving debt you don't own is easy generosity. But it teaches universities they can raise tuition further because Uncle Sugar will expropriate plumbers to pay philosophy majors who studied the oppression of plumbers. That's not compassion. It's class warfare disguised as empathy. Laughter. Applause. Imagine if I announced tomorrow that SpaceX refunds all Starlink satellites out of taxpayer funds, he added. Would cable companies cheer? Or would they ask why their customers bankroll my R&D? Yet that's what happened. Welders in Ohio asked to underwrite Harvard's lazy rivers. Carlson tossed his pen aside again. Elon, you realize you just angered half the Ivy League endowment offices. Musk deadpanned, let them build rockets. Foreign policy kaleidoscope. Ukraine, Nord Stream, Iran, Taiwan. A rotating globe animation. Nonstop since 1987. Carlson slapped a laser pointer dot onto Eastern Europe. Ukraine. Endless funding packages. No inspector general. No exit strategy. Musk. Deterrence failed the moment we projected dithering. If your security guarantee is ambiguous, the aggressor calculates odds of lukewarm response, rolls dice. Peace through strength is not macho posturing. It's pre-collision braking. Carlson. Nord Stream mystery explodes, literally. Biden once said the pipeline will not move forward if Russia invades. Pipeline gets destroyed, world shrugs. Musk. If an underwater blast can reshape global LNG flows and nobody owns it publicly, that's geopolitical anarchy. Markets despise ambiguity. They respond with price spikes. Hedge funds feast, pensioners bleed. They circled the Pacific, Taiwan. Semiconductor choke points. Musk argued 21st century deterrence must include manufacturing deterrence. If you can crash the world's supply of 3-nanometer chips by sailing across a strait, you own leverage surpassing aircraft carriers. Carlson nodded gravely, a man who'd once broadcast from Taipei rooftops in a typhoon. The macro lens, institutions' competence, and the conveyor belt of crisis. 2 hours in, no commercial breaks. Audience restroom lines formed. Producers passed out bottled water like medics at a marathon. Carlson. Step back. It feels like each crisis shares DNA. Ambition divorced from competence. What? Musk. Credentialism over achievement. We select managers by resumed checkboxes, not by previous wins under real-world constraints. They memorize frameworks, never build a product, never bled on the factory floor at 3 a.m. Then they legislate complexity that real builders must obey. He lifted both hands, palms outward. A civilization is a supply chain of trust. If farmers don't trust the currency, they stop shipping grain. If coders don't trust freedom of speech, they self-censor, innovation stalls. Trust is the lubricant. What we have now is sand in the gears. Carlson, almost whispering, is the sand deliberate? Sometimes, activists believe friction punishes their enemies. They forget that society is one gearbox. Grind any cog, and the flywheel slows for all. Lightning round, triage of failures. Carlson pulled a stack of flashcards, began firing. Carlson, supply chains? Musk, treat ports like runways, 24/7 ops, or planes pile up in sky. Longshore unions plus federal dithering equals container graveyards. Carlson, crime spikes. Musk, refuse to prosecute shoplifting, you abolish the commons. It's 0-day whereas for social order. One exploit, patch never issued. Carlson, education. Musk, classroom time, teaching pronoun neo-Calvinism rather than calculus. Future engineers emigrating from the math Olympiad leaderboard to Singapore. Carlson, IRS expansion, 87,000 agents. Musk, if you need an army to interpret your tax code, the code is tyranny by obscurity. Each answer detonated cheers. The crescendo, blueprint for post-failure renaissance. Carlson uncapped the fountain pen a final time. Suppose tomorrow the administration vanished and you were tapped, not as czar, but as consultant to rebuild. 3 priorities, executive summary. Musk spoke without pause, as though reciting firmware already flashed to brain. Energy abundance. Fast-track modular nuclear, unleash domestic drilling, deregulate transmission lines. Cheap electrons equal national security. Radical transparency. Publish every federal budget line item in machine-readable format. Audit algorithms for content takedowns. Sunlight is antibiotic. Competence culture. Tie promotions to deliverables. Fire 20% of middle management in every agency. Shift savings to frontline engineers and analysts. Reward builders, not bureaucrats. Carlson let the words hang like cathedral bells after the toll. Then, and if they ignore this, Musk shrugged. Starships launch anyway. Parallel systems emerge. Eventually, the competent frontier displaces the decadent core, peacefully or otherwise. History is phase change. A quiet fell so thick it seemed the HVAC stopped. The on-air bulb faded. Credits scrolled white on obsidian. Yet the cameras did not cut to commercials. Producers let the handshake linger. Viewers saw Carlson remove his earpiece. Musk step around the desk. Audience rising in ovation that felt closer to relief than triumph. Relief that someone, somewhere, had described the chaos in equations, not slogans. Outside the studio, night traffic of Washington, D.C. hissed along wet asphalt. Unaware that servers in Iowa already cloned clips, Tucker and Elon expose everything, spawning millions of shares before the first coffee perked in Seattle. In the White House press bullpen, interns opened Slack threads titled simply "Oh." On Reddit, memes of Musk as Neo blocking fact-checker bullets spread faster than the fact-checkers could reload. And in some living room, an undecided voter stared at her TV, not sure she agreed with any of it, but for the first time, certain the discussion had been forbiddenly real. Back on stage C, Carlson asked Musk off-mic, "Think we move the needle?" Musk gazed at the ceiling, where rigging trusses cast rib-cage shadows. Momentum is mass times velocity. Tucker, we supplied velocity. The public will supply mass or not. Physics will decide. He checked his phone, Falcon 9 telemetry, not Twitter mentions, and smiled. Another booster had landed on a drone ship named, fittingly, just read the instructions. Carlson chuckled. What instruction did we just give them? Musk pocketed the phone. Build. Question. Repeat. They departed through opposite wings, two silhouettes swallowed by the backstage dark, leaving behind only dust motes swirling in the halo of cooling spotlights. Tiny particles, yes, but enough, perhaps, to seed the next storm.